Will it ever be possible to read the thoughts and feelings of another human being? Maybe even put ideas into their head to have them do our bidding?
Well, have you ever felt that someone was watching you, but there was really no one there? What if someone really was watching? The government is monitoring their every move, reading their thoughts, and controlling their minds.
It's an entire program. It's a stalking, harassment, surveillance, torture.
Marianne Stratton says she is a walking human experiment.
You can't go anywhere without somebody following you, knowing they know what you buy, they know what you purchase.
At this rally last summer, Stratton and others explained how the government monitors their thoughts through ultra-frequency radio waves sent by any energy source directly to the electromagnetic waves in their brains.
And like I said, they can tune it to any human that they want in this country, just like a radio frequency, like an FM station.
The ultimate weapon in the info war would be so secret, so invisible, so undetectable, you would never know your mind was under attack. At Laurentian University in Ontario, Canada, a young student is about to undergo one of the strangest experiences of her life. They're hooking Denise's brain up to an electroencephalograph, or EEG machine. For 30 to 40 minutes, this will monitor her brainwaves, while these electric coils attached on either side of her head will immerse her brain in an electromagnetic field. Her brain actually completes the circuit between the two coils. The field pulsing through her brain is less powerful than one given off by a digital clock radio, but acutely controlled and focused at specific parts of the brain, it will open Denise's mind to outside suggestion by this man.
We're going to do a switch to see if it's right or left hemisphere. Use your frontal temporal.
Dr. Michael Persinger is a professor of psychology and neuroscience. He is designing ways to put the power of mind control to good use. Dr. Persinger's tests suggest that carefully programmed electromagnetic frequencies can tap into individual brains and influence people's emotions.
The cognitive processes of the human brain are really quite simple. And if you understand how they work, you can make entire populations think and decide the manner in which you wish.
Many experts are skeptical of such an Orwellian scenario, but Persinger thinks the implications are chillingly real.
Suppose you generate a field that produces fear, fundamental fear, in large numbers of people. And then, over the television, more traditional ways, you say, the reason we're having this fear is because of this particular group. And now you start to move the population believing in a direction that you wish.
To influence 250 million people, the equivalent of the entire population of the United States, may not be that difficult. According to Dr. Persinger, we already have the technology, satellites and television and radio transmitters. Mind control may already be happening. We know the mysterious PSYOPs plane can beam persuasive sounds and pictures into people's television sets. Will it someday beam disturbing frequencies directly into the mind? Mind control will be the ultimate non-lethal weapon. The promise of truly bloodless war may come only with the most devastating weapon of all. If the human mind and will become the battleground of the future, War 2020 may be won without so much as a whimper, let alone a bang.
And that is the ultimate goal of psychological operations. We're able to basically win a contingency, I wouldn't call it a war, without firing a shot.
Radio frequency devices can be used as weapons against the human mind. Is the United States military working in the field of electronic mind control? Officially, the Department of Defense will not comment because the subject area is, quote, too sensitive. But CNN has learned from this government scientist, who did not want to be identified, that a Navy laboratory conducted research into the use of an RF device for counterterrorism and special operations.
24 people mysteriously fell ill last year while working at the U.S. Embassy in Cuba. Now, doctors say they found strange changes in the brains of those victims, according to the Associated Press. The 24 embassy employees and their spouses suffered damage to their hearing, vision, balance, and memory starting last year in Havana. Officials thought the workers had been subjected to sonic attacks as they reported hearing loud sounds in their homes or hotels that made their ears ring. The AP reported Wednesday, December 6th, that medical testing found physical changes in the victims' brains, specifically regarding their brain's white matter, which transmits information between cells. Doctors aren't unsure how these changes were made to the white matter.
The study also showed that RF signals could dissolve certain types of rat brain cells at a distance, causing disorientation and nausea. According to the scientist, even though the program was successful, the government never followed up on it. Dr. James Frazier did electromagnetic research for the U.S. Air Force for many years. At one time, he proposed a battlefield RF weapon system.
You could make an antenna that would be carryable by a helicopter, and that this could be expected to produce a wide variety of symptoms, actually, by humans who happen to be standing in the beam.
According to Dr. Frazier, the Air Force never followed up. Lawrence Livermore Laboratory, another RF weapons concept, is nicknamed the Brain Bomb. According to the book Star Warriors, the Brain Bomb would focus a nuclear blast into a huge pulse of low-frequency RF energy that would stun huge numbers of troops. The Department of Defense will not comment about if American RF weapons development is going forward. These satellite photographs are of mysterious non-nuclear explosions near an uninhabited island in the East Siberian Sea, and that they are discharges from an RF weapon that uses intersecting energy beams called scalars.
In doing so, you can create, for example, either an electromagnetic explosion at a distance, or you can create an electromagnetic implosion at a distance, the extraction of energy from a distant point. This would look like a cold explosion, so to speak. And I believe the thing on April the 9th, 1984, off the coast of Japan, that involved several 747 jet airliners, I believe that incident was a test of a cold explosion weapons. At least it met all the characteristics.
Pilot Doug Happ was in one of the 5 airline crews that saw an incredibly large cloud rising from the moonlit overcast below.
It looked like a plate coming up through an overcast, but it just kept expanding. As it got higher, it was apparent that you could see right through the middle of it, so it looked like a big smoke ring. At the time that we first noticed this cloud, we weren't sure what to do, and we took no evasive action because we didn't know which way to go. And I think eventually we either ran through it or it completely engulfed us.
Happ says when his flight reached Anchorage, Alaska, it was checked for radioactive contamination. None was found. Dr. Bass and others feel the most likely form of RF weaponry would be high-powered microwaves, similar to a focused, ultra-high-intensity radar beam. It would literally cook humans and knock out computers and electronic surveillance and communications gear. An operational RF weapon, relatively cheap and reusable, could devastate sophisticated, expensive war machinery. Scientists say that microwaves and other types of RF pulses operating at specific frequencies or windows can be transmitted with little or no loss of power. Machines known as gyrotrons can produce massive pulses needed to drive these devices.
That's remarkable.
But not as remarkable as a real-life experiment where I was the subject of a prototype device designed to project images into the mind without electrodes. The prototype machine, developed from Soviet scientific data, could, according to some scientists, have a profound effect as a weapon of war. Electronic mind control research is not new. A scientific milestone in this area came in the 1960s when Dr. Jose Delgado demonstrated remote control over a charging bull. By connecting a radio antenna to electrodes inserted into the bull's brain, Delgado proved that the animal's aggressive impulses could be thwarted by electronically manipulating the bull's muscle reflexes.
Do you realize the fantastic possibilities if from the outside we could modify the inside? Could we give messages to the inside? But the beauty is that now we are not using electrodes.
In recent years, Delgado has shown that the behavior of monkeys can be altered using low-power, pulsating magnetic fields. But in these experiments, experiments, there were no antenna implants.
Any function in the brain, emotions, intellect, personality, well, we perhaps modify by this non-invasive technology.
Delgado's research has so far been limited to animals, but in the Soviet Union, a radio frequency, or RF device, has been used for over 30 years to manipulate the moods of mental patients. It's called a light machine. It radiates pulses of radio frequency energy, as well as light, sound, and heat. The pulse rate is in the extremely low frequency range, between 0 and 100 pulses per second. Dr. Ross Adey is the top researcher at the Veterans Administration Hospital in Loma Linda, California. He has been investigating the effects of the LIDA machine.
Now, what do the Soviets use this machine for? Well, they don't use it anymore. We should be very clear that this is a machine which is regarded by them as somewhat obsolete technologically.
The scientist, who did not want his identity revealed, is employed by the U.S. government and has done secret RF weapons search. He believes that tests done with the LIDA and similar machines prove that humans are susceptible to remote alterations of mood and awareness.
Certain kinds of weak electromagnetic signals work exactly like drugs. So the promise is that anything you can do with drugs, you could do with the right electromagnetic signals. Apparently, there are specific sites involved, specific functions involved. It's a matter of matching up, just like it is with a pill or a drug, to cause and effect. You could have a cause and effect relationship between a magnetic field and a biological function.
I asked Van Bice what a weapon using this technology could do.
Induce basically what would be considered hallucinations of people, direct them to do things against their so-called better judgment.
How easy would it be to assemble a weapon from existing off-the-shelf parts?
In 3 weeks, I could put together a weapon that would take care of a whole town.
Cheryl Welsh maintains that the U.S. government is testing mind control on unknowing victims.
Well, basically, the International Red Cross has a 1990 article which discusses the fact that many major superpowers, many industrialized countries, are researching electromagnetic technology for anti-personnel uses, and the technology is highly classified.
Cheryl believes that she and others are the victims of this mind control research.
Many of the victims that I network with describe hearing voices and microwave illness, where they have headaches, just generally sleep disturbances, sunburns even though it's at night, just microwave effects.
Microwaves and other radio frequencies are known to affect the human body. But could they be responsible for voices in people's heads? In Chicago, Illinois, a world authority on microwave hearing shows how it could work.
I'm hearing a microwave pulse like a click. Now it sounds like a chirp with a tonal quality to it.
Professor James Lynn is hearing sounds that aren't there. But he's not crazy. Pulses of microwave energy are being generated and fired at him from behind.
Microwaves can be heard depending on the individual, depending on the hearing acuity of the individual. Individuals with fairly normal hearing can hear microwaves at quite a low level.
Voices. That's how they get you. The spooks have developed a technology called synthetic telepathy. Sounds like ghosts inside of you. They beam a frequency at you and let your skeleton conduct the voices like an antenna. They've targeted individuals for experimentation.
The energy of the absorbed microwaves causes brain tissue to very slightly heat up and expand, causing a pressure wave to be picked up by the hearing mechanism in the inner ear.
Brain is an electrical organ. It is susceptible to electrical signals. Since microwave is electrical, therefore, in principle, one could embed or encode information in the microwave signal such that it could be perceived by the brain.
Jesse Ventura has his doubts that the HAARP antennas can broadcast radio waves that influence people's thoughts. But Nick Begich is prepared for the skeptics. Now, Dr. Nick Begich is showing him how the HAARP transmitter can send a signal directly to his brain.
Wow.
So what did you hear?
Well, I heard music, but it's strange because I listened to try to figure out where the music was coming from, and it seemed like right here.
Right.
It sounded like I was hearing it almost through the top of my head or my forehead.
Right.
In the case of a microwave auditory effect, the source is electromagnetic. So if you expose the biological tissue to a pulse of microwave energy, the tissue expands and induces a vibration. Instead of going through the middle ear, the microwave-induced vibration gets propagated to the inner ear directly, and at the inner ear is converted to electrical impulses again. And in this case, a vibration in the human tissue, if the tissue is the head, for example, will fall within the auditory range of the human.
It's not new. I realize that nothing we've been doing is new. We haven't been tapping into new areas of the brain. We've just been awakening the most ancient. This technology is simply a route to powers that conjurers and alchemists used centuries ago.
Reliving earthlings, neural pathways are inspected mandatorily and connected using voice to sculpt telepathy, absorbing data fingerprints to play us back like instruments, manipulating us just like we're puppets of ventriloquists. Remote controlling human beings like Ouija boards, coursing through the veins of circuit boards, record the sound of every vocal cord. Moving exponentially towards a singularity. Eventually we won't distinguish magic from technology, and robots will unplug from electricity, no longer using batteries but powered like a golem using alchemy. It's the age-old lie, the promise of utopia, the carrot on the stick, the empty cornucopia, technological hive mind dystopia. What will arise is a time of robophobia. It's the age-old lie, the promise of utopia, the carrot on the stick, the empty cornucopia, technological hive mind dystopia. What will arise is a time of robophobia. So we manipulate genetically our DNA collectively, infecting every living organism and